Now, the way we did it in the last video with creating this one line and putting everything in a response is a great way to do it if you really simply need a pretty basic implementation with an API. Say that you want to grab Twitter friends or something like that. If you need something a little bit more specific, then you're usually going to want to create a class dedicated to managing that. So that's what we're going to do in this video. I'm going to create a class called Stack Exchange and end. Okay, first thing we need to do, just like when we created our custom class, we need to bring in HTTP party. And now we also need to set our base URI. And in this case, we're going to bring in api.stackexchange.com. Okay, now because this is a custom class, we want to set a set of options and create an initializer. So I'm going to say def initialize and start off with a service and also a page. And here I'm going to create an instance variable called options and set this with a hash. And we want to make a query. And this is going to be a nested hash. So inside the query is going to be the site and then the service. And this service is an argument. So this is a service that we're passing into the initializer. So that's all we need to do for that. And now let's create a few custom methods. So I'm going to say def questions. So this is going to bring in all of the questions. So if you remember when we went and got the body, this brought up a lot of content. Let's be more specific. And so that's what we're going to do here. We're going to call the API endpoint for questions. So inside of here, I'm going to end this out and say self.class.get, because this is going to be a get request. And in here, pass in a string. So I'm going to say /2.2/questions, and then pass in our options instance variable. And this is available to us because options was set here in the initializer. And if you wonder where I got this from right here, this is just the API endpoint. So any type of API you're working with, whether it be Yelp, Twitter, Google Maps, anything like that, their documentation is going to provide a string-based input endpoint for the API that you'll grab, and then you can then parse that once you get it. So that's for questions. Now let's also get their users. So I'm going to create a method called users. And in here, it's going to be a pretty similar call. You can probably guess already what I'm going to type in. So self.class.get and pass in a string of 2.2/users and then pass in our options. Okay, and that's all we have to do. So now let's come and create an instance of our Stack Exchange class. So I'm just going to say stack_exchange equals Stack Exchange.new. And now, because our initializer, if you remember back to our class lessons, our initializer takes in some arguments, so we have to pass these to them. So I'm going to say Stack Overflow, because that's a service that we want, and that's something that you would get in the documentation. The documentation would say what the service name would be and how you have to pass that in. So I'm going to say Stack Overflow and 1, and that's because we want the first page. With the way that they have their Stack Overflow as their API set up, you can pass in the page that you want, and so it's only going to bring us the first page of results. So we have that. Now let's print it out. So I'm going to say put Stack Exchange .questions. So we're simply, at first right here, we're just calling our questions method. So let's open this up, say Ruby API example, and let's see what we get. Okay, that worked. So right here, you can see it brings in a question ID. It brings a link to the question. So just to make sure that what we're doing is actually working, I'll copy this And let's open up a browser. And there you go. It took us right to the spot we wanted to go, which is awesome. So let's see some of the other attributes. So we have the title, using triggers for logging in SQL Server, a set of tags, a owner, which is you connected to the user, profile image like we saw before, display name, everything that you'd need to pull in the Stack Overflow questions. So that is awesome, and that's working perfectly. Now let's duplicate this, and now let's look for users. So we're going to call our users method right here, and I'm going to clear it so we don't have any confusion. Okay, run it again, and this should bring in all the users, and it does. So this brings in the first page of users, their gravatars, their website URLs, all the different things that you would need to pull in the set of users associated with the first page on Stack Overflow. So great job if you went through that. You now know how to create a custom class that connects to an API, and a very powerful and robust one like Stack Exchange. Pass in custom variables such as the type of service, the page that you're trying to get, and create a initializer that you can pass into your custom methods, and then pull all the data in and show it to your users. And that's the first step. Then the next video, what we're going to get into is what would we want to do, because as much as it's as cool as it is to see all this, what if we actually want to put this on a website, or we want to make this usable? Well, in the next video, I'm going to show you how you can grab these elements and then slide them into something you can actually use, and we're going to walk through the details on that.